Hello, listeners. We're back. Did you miss us? Did you miss our voices? Of course you did. Well, after a short break with the internationals and a little bit of leave that was much needed at None and Ever Towers, we are back with the preview show. The Clarets back from international duty and they're looking ahead to their final 8 games of the championship campaign. Will they do enough to get over the line and sneak into automatic or even take the title from what looks to be Leedsers? Will they end up in the playoffs? Will they win the playoffs? What is going to happen in the last game of the season? Who knows? We are back with your usual preview show team, myself and Statman Dave. And we're going to be looking at all the stats and facts ahead of this weekend's visit by Bristol City. We're also joined by the exiled Robin to give us their view from the opposition dugout. So, listeners, buckle up. Let's go. The best view in football. Good evening, Dave. How are you, sir?
I'm very well, thank you. Good to be back.
It is very good to be back. I have missed the podcast. It's amazing how when you're in a championship season and you've got a selection of weekend and midweek fixtures, how we only took a couple of weeks off. We took the international break and we took the week before off. It's amazing how you feel like you've been gone for 5 years. It really is quite crazy. So yes, listeners, apologies for the slight break. We had a slightly extended international break here. The perils of creating podcasts while we all have those grown-up job things to do and families and actual commitments. So we do welcome your support and we're very grateful to lots of people who sent us messages going, "Oi, where are you? Come back." Because it means you still love us and that's a lovely thing. But we are refreshed, re-energised, and we are ready to count down, Dave, to the last game of the season. Can you believe it's only 8 games left? Where's the season gone? Yes, it has. It's been a long old season, right? It's been a funny one. It is. Well, listeners, before we check in with you and we empty that brain of Dave's and delve into his bank of knowledge, we're going to have a quick check in with the rest of the team. We asked our good friends and our colleagues from the Analysis Show team to give us their views on the state of the union, essentially. What are the Clarets looking at? What do they think is going to happen between now and then? Where do they think the club's going to sit? And what are their thoughts ahead of this weekend's fixture? So let's break off and speak to them. Tom, thank you for stepping in and giving us a little bit of an update. We are looking ahead to the Clarets home tie against Bristol this weekend. But before we get to that point, we wanted to speak to the wider None and Ever team and have a bit of a catch-up, really. It's been a couple of weeks since we all had a bit of a break. And we're coming in now to the final run-in, 8 weeks to go before the Clarets' fate for this season is determined. So I just wanted to have a bit of chat with you, really, to see how you're feeling. There seems to have been a bit of an upturn recently in terms of performances and goals being scored by the Clarets. 25 games undefeated, which is remarkable. I remember how excited we were when we went 23 games undefeated in Dyche's championship season. We're now 25. We sit third in the league, but there's just 2 points separating Leeds, Sheffield United and Burnley. And we just need to basically look at whether or not it's going to be automatic or playoffs for us. How are you feeling generally with this last run-in, Tom? Where's your headspace at?
Yeah, I think probably a few weeks ago, if you just said, we're going to get 10 points from 12 and we're still going to be behind Sheffield United, you'd have felt a bit deflated, but I don't think anyone really predicted that we were going to pull Leeds in the way we have. They've obviously started wobbling and it looks a lot more optimistic knowing that you're 2 points off Leeds as well as 2 points off Sheffield United. The form's really good, as you mentioned there. We look a better attacking team than we did at the start of the season, and some of the games, the teams we've beaten recently, Swansea, Cardiff, Luton, they're not exactly the most difficult games we're going to have this season, but they're the kind of ones where you would have seen us dropping points perhaps before. Cardiff away, 2-0 up and then pull it back to 2-1. We're a little bit nervy at the end, but we saw it out. Luton, obviously the red card helped, but it wasn't just a 0-0 or a straight 1-0. It was a 4-0 shellacking in the end, and we played very well. And the same at Swansea, we got them 2 early goals and we were really comfortable after that. The West Brom was a bit of a disappointment. They obviously had the advantage of that free kick. It should have been moved and it wasn't. And then they got the goal from that. And perhaps we could have kicked on a bit more in the last 20. And I think that's the biggest worry for me, really, as it stands. We're not far off Sheffield United or Leeds at all. but I think our running's the trickiest, and I think the next 2 games are going to be absolutely pivotal in terms of where we're going to finish, because I think our next 2 games are going to be, other than the obvious one, Sheffield United, they're going to be the trickiest. I think Bristol City are on a really good run. They got a point recently at Bramall Lane, and we know Coventry are in really, really good form at the minute as well, and we're having to go there away. So I can see us dropping points in one or both of these next 2 games, and if obviously Leeds and Sheffield United carry on picking up points at the rate they have been, then that's going to make the last 6 games quite tricky for us. But if we come out the next 2 with maximum points, then we're going to be in a really good position, I think.
Do you think there's any possibility that the Clarets can go for the title, or are you only looking at this as second or third? Are you ruling out us winning the league?
It's really hard to say, because I think if you said a few weeks ago Leeds are going to drop, they're going to lose at Portsmouth, they're going to drop points at QPR, you wouldn't have really found it likely. To be only 2 points behind them, I think, is amazing. And we know that their kind of DNA, as it were, is that they get to this kind of point in the season and they have a bit of a wobble. They did it last season. They were second at this point in last season, and they ended up in the playoffs. Even the first season with Bielsa, I can remember them around Easter losing at home to Wigan, who were on the way down, and that ultimately cost them automatic promotion that season. And of course, they followed in the playoffs. So there'll be a few people thinking that, Leeds. I think if you took the emotion out of it, I would say it's, the title is probably a little bit beyond us. I think Leeds are just a better side. I think Sheffield United, their first 11 is better than ours. I think perhaps our squad is maybe slightly better. We can deal with absentees slightly better than they can. But I'm not too worried if we win the title. If we go in second place, I'll be more than happy with that.
Yeah, I would too. The only thing that I've said, and this is just a fan, coming from the heart thing, wouldn't it have been really cool to have a hat trick of titles with 3 consecutive seasons in the Championship? I'm not sure anybody's ever done that before. So yeah, that would be pretty nice. What are you expecting from Scott Parker in the next 8 games then? I mean, we've pretty much, in my mind, Dave and I have talked about this on the preview show, we've pretty much sewn up the playoffs now. We're not going to drop out the playoffs. Even if we lost all 8 games, we'd probably still be in the playoffs, because other teams will take points off each other and they play each other coming into it. So there's a massive justification now for Parker to really take that handbrake off and go for it, because what have you got to lose? What approach do you think he's going to take with these last 8 games?
I think, to be honest, that West Brom home game was a bit of a clue. It was like for like subs in the last 20 minutes. We're kind of pushing. We were getting to injury time, and he took Anthony and Edwards off and replaced them like for like, which I thought was a strange one. Foster came on for Fleming, and then it wasn't. I know Foster went off injured, so he had to bring Barnes on in place. But that was a game where West Brom had clearly sat back, settled for a point, and we needed to change it. We needed to be more proactive, and I just don't think Parker's got it in him, to be honest. And it's my biggest problem with him. I think if we're 20 minutes to go and it's 1-1 against Bristol City, are we confident that we're going to kick on and get a winner in the last 20? We've not done it often this season, and it worries. These next 2 games, I can really just see them both being draws, and if then you're playing catch up massively with 6 games to go. And I think it's pretty important that we need to be, well, I mean, it's not in our hands, but it would be very good if we could be in front of Sheffield United when we play them at the Turf, knowing that we don't have to win that game, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I agree.
You'd be more comfortable in that position. So,
although we know how that went against Leeds, we'd been given that absolute gift with Sheffield United losing. So there was absolutely, we could have absolutely gone for it, and we didn't. We played out the dullest 0-0 in the history of 0-0s. Both teams guilty of that. So yeah, I do worry about Parker. That I do worry. I've tried to give him the benefit of the doubt for this season, Tom, and just say like he's a master strategist. He knows what he's doing. He's gonna go for the sprint finish. He's a master of the Championship, and then he just keeps playing scared football, and he does really, really worry me with that sense. Looking ahead then in terms of players, obviously we already got that boost ahead of the Swansea game with CJ having that silly red card overturned. Do you expect there to be any changes or any in terms of style, formation, or use of players with the lead up with these 8 games now, or is it going to be very much like for like?
Yeah, I think that one of the advantages now is we're pretty settled. Obviously, you'd like Humphries to come back if he's fit, but I've not heard anything about him being available anytime soon. So
On for the end of the season, I think, hasn't he?
Yeah, it sounds that way. So I think we're going to have to steal ourselves a Perez in there. He's been playing well, to be fair, since he's
he
come
has, yeah. Last 2 games, especially, he was excellent.
Yeah, I agree. So the back five obviously is it picked itself. Cullen's undroppable. I think the only kind of real question mark is in the midfield. I think for me it would be probably Lawrence sitting and Brownhill playing 10. I think that gives us the best balance.
Yeah.
Edwards and Anthony, I think they're both kind of automatic picks. And for me, I don't think you can really make a case for Foster over Fleming. I know not everyone in our podcast team agrees with that, but
the most contentious topic in our entire group thread is whether it's Foster or Fleming, and I have to sit in the middle of it being Switzerland and being like, do you know what? I can't get excited about this debate. I'm sorry. Both of them for me, I'm fed up of. So whatever.
But I think Parker is very much on the Fleming side anyway. So I think if we can keep that 11 together for the next 8 games, and I'm not a massive fan of Laurent. I've criticised him on Twitter before in terms of his own ability. I think it's perhaps beyond what we've been used to in terms of he doesn't use the ball very well.
No.
But the team looks better when he plays. I think the midfield is more balanced when he plays. And I'm not a massive fan of Hannibal either, to be honest. So for me, that would be that I'd just be playing that 11 every week now from now to the end of the season, and fingers crossed there's no injuries.
Yeah, I think one of the things, a little bit of a spoiler alert, one of the things that we're going to be speaking to our opposition fan in the second half of this week's preview show, we do learn that Bristol City like to play with 3 centre-halves and 2 full-backs, so they're going to be a very difficult side to break down defensively. From that perspective, I do wonder whether or not we need Laurent in, however you pronounce it, in midfield, just because, do we then take the benefit of Hannibal's slightly more proactive approach in trying to break down teams? If we have a back 5 there with Bristol City and Cullen and Laurent in that midfield, that feels to me a bit of a stalemate. I don't know whether that makes a difference to your selection preference.
I think, to be fair to Laurent, what he does do is he carries the ball. I think, so you use the word proactive there for Hannibal. I think Laurent is pretty proactive as well. He doesn't always use it well. Like I say, I think his passing is really poor for the standard we're expecting, kind of thing. But what I do like about him is when he gets the ball, he'll bring it, he'll carry it. He can get us 30, 40 yards up the pitch doing that. He's chipped in a lot more than I know. He's played probably more consistently than Hannibal, but
that's right.
Goal. He got the assist for Barnes against Luton. I can't think of loads off the top of my head, but like I say, I think for me it's not the individual attributes of the players. I think it's just the best balance of our midfield looks like, to me, it looks like Cullen and Lawrence sitting and Brownhill in the 10. And I don't think Parker's he's not going to suddenly just have 1 sitter and 2 10s beyond the striker.
No, that's fair.
Yeah, he's not going to change it. So I think within those parameters, I think that's the best selection for me. But okay. I mean, Hannibal's a good option as well to bring off the bench, and we've seen him have good games when he played. I think it's Watford he did well. So
Hannibal and Foster's not a bad option to bring off the bench, is it? Really, to be fair. Good. Okay, let's finish off then before we head back to the preview show. Put your what I'd say, pin your flag to the mast. What is it, that expression that they say? Where are you saying right now, with 8 games to go, and we'll do the rest of the team over the course of the analysis show, 8 games to go, automatic or playoffs?
I think we'll be playoffs. I hope I'm wrong, of course, but I just think we're going to drop too many points by drawing games where we don't push enough for the winner. And I think that's going to be the story of the season. But having said that, I think we'll have a good chance in the playoffs if we are in there, because I think this kind of safety first defensive style probably lends itself better to that kind of knockout football than it does for a 46 league game campaign.
Playing the likes of Coventry though and Bristol City, who are doing that sprint finish on a fantastic form, does worry me. God, can you imagine it?
It's not fixtures compared to the two.
True. No, that is true actually. Can you imagine the media loving between what's he called? Frank Lampard and Scott Parker and the bench, like the ex-players. That'll be like the biggest loving ever when they do the playoffs.
Anyway, Middlesbrough get in as well, Michael Carrick.
I don't think Middlesbrough are going to get in. I was talking to a Middlesbrough fan today, and it just they've done this. They've done this for about 5 seasons now. Like set off all guns blazing at the beginning of the season, and then been looked like genuine playoff contenders. We've all been saying like these are the ones to look out for this season, and then they just get to Christmas and they just fall off a cliff, and they're nowhere near where they need to be this season at all. So yeah, I don't think it's them.
Probably it's looking like probably West Brom and Coventry now, isn't it? I think.
Yeah, West Brom, Coventry, Sunderland, and Burnley.
No,
Leeds. I'm going to say it's going to be Sheffield United, Burnley, Leeds. That's what I'm going to say. Leeds look to me like they're having a wobble. Sheffield United aren't a great side, but my goodness me, they look box so many results. It's not even funny. So I think they might squeeze a title. We'll come in behind them, like 1 point behind them, and Leeds will end up in the playoffs 1 point behind us. That's my prediction.
I would love that.
I would love it so much. But you know what would be? Do you know what would be the ultimate? If Burnley took the title, can you imagine the uproar in Yorkshire?
Can you imagine it's last day of the season, Burnley and Sheffield United both winning. Blackburn last minute equaliser against Sheffield United, hands Burnley the title.
That's the title. Make it happen, football. I do feel like we've used up all of our football run good with winning the title at Ewood. I'm not telling you.
Probably right.
That's asking a bit too much, but yeah, bring it on. That would be amazing. Tom, it's been an absolute pleasure catching up with you as always. Thank you very much for joining our preview show, and we'll see you next week for the analysis show.
Looking forward to it. Thank you very much for having me.
There we are, Dave. How are you feeling ahead of this game, Dave? Just generally speaking.
Reasonably calm. Yeah, I think we're on a good run. I mean, we're 25 matches unbeaten. Remember when we were 23 unbeaten? It seemed like. I mean, obviously we've drawn a lot more games, but I think we're ready for that running. We've got 8 games to go. We're unbeaten at home. I think we just need to keep going, and I think maybe take the foot off the gas. Well, put the foot on the gas a little bit.
Take the handbrake off. Yeah.
Take the handbrake off. We are in a position now where we are, well, mathematically guaranteed a playoff place. There's 21-point gap. There's 8 games to play, but other teams play each other. So we've got a playoff place virtually guaranteed. We need to be making sure that we aren't playing out draws. We need to be going for it. We need to be getting the wins in games and being a little bit more. I mean, we still need to be solid defensively, but I think we need to be pushing forward and getting those goals.
We can take more risks now, I think, and there's no reason to not go for it, because even if we lose all of those games, we're gonna finish in the playoffs. It's like you might as well go for it and try and see if you can put pressure on everybody else. It's what I've been campaigning for this entire season. It's been driving me mad as this very safe style of football. So yeah, I do very much share those views. Okay, well, we have got a preview show that we need to produce, Dave. So why don't you kick us off, please, with a couple of stats to let us know all about this particular fixture.
Yeah. A couple of stats to begin with. The history of this fixture goes all the way back to 1902, although Burnley failed to secure a victory on any of Bristol City's first 5 visits to Turf Moor in the 1990s. It wasn't until their 6th visit, that was in November of 1911, that the Clarets, or should I say the Whites, as we played in white shirts despite being at home, secured a first home victory in this fixture by a 4-2 scoreline. On the 3 occasions Bristol City has scored 3 goals at Turf Moor, they've gone on to win the match 3-2, twice in 1904 and then again in 1996. Meanwhile, Burnley have put 4 goals past Bristol City on 4 previous occasions, including the match we've chosen for the feature I like to call No Nay Never Remembers. We'll tell you more about that a little bit later on.
It's memory match. It's always going to be a memory match. It really is. Well, listeners, we do normally have a live fan in the studio for this particular segment, but with some recording clashes, we are going to bring you our opposition view this week live from the editing studio. Earlier on this evening, I sat down with Paul from the Exiled Robin to talk to him about just how their season is going at Bristol City and perhaps an unexpected for him. Paul, Exiled Robin, welcome to the No Nay Never podcast. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Yes, I think I was on this a long time ago, 7, 8, 9 years ago, maybe, before you had your years in the Premier League. So it's good to be back.
Yes, it is. Yeah, sorry about that. Depending on how this season goes, we might be hanging around for a bit. Or better still, we might be leapfrogging next season. Well, we might end up staying in the Championship, and you might be in the Premier League, which we'll get on to very shortly. Let's not spoil the treat. Well, welcome back. Lots of change at Dawn and Ever Tower since last time you were here. For no other reason other than we've actually got video now, as most people do. But it's very lovely to have you back on. This weekend's fixture has ended up being perhaps a more tighter affair and a more frightening game from our perspective than maybe it would have been at the beginning of the season. And I don't mean this in any way as a disrespectful point, but perhaps a surprise package this season, Bristol City. You must be delighted with how this season's gone.
Yes, I think from an outsider's point of view, absolutely. I think we've been sort of bracketed in this mid-table group with your friends from Preston for the last few years in terms of being never going down, never going up, stuck in the Championship.
Yeah, you're better than Preston for sure.
We're better than Preston. We know we're better than Preston. But yeah, we've been in that position. But for us, we've actually grown. If you look at the last 4 or 5 years, we had a bad experience out of COVID. We had a model where we were selling young players for big money. And COVID kind of killed that for a couple of years. So we ended up having to basically get rid of half our squad, start again under Nigel Pearson. And I can't remember the exact positions. We finished something like 19th, 16th and 12th for the last 3 years. So we've been progressing quite nicely. If you'd asked most City fans at the start of the season, I think most would have sort of said, if we can get in the top 10, we're a little push at the playoffs, we'll be quite happy about that. That'd be sort of seamless progression. We're doing quite well. So, yeah, we're not a million miles off where we expected to be. I think from a Championship point of view, maybe clubs didn't expect us to be there. But we recruited mostly well in the summer. Our recruitment in our forward positions left a little bit to be desired. But that's maybe being in the Championship, trying to find a 20-goal striker in the Championship is not very easy at all. No. As you very well know from your season.
Yeah,
I think we're better than we expected to be, and yet it's strange because there's an underlying feeling of the club that's still not. Liam Manning is not like the most popular manager we ever had. He's not.
Oh, really?
Popular. There's doubts about how he plays a lot of sideways football, a lot of passing football. It's this modern.
Oh, I know the pain. And
you sort of feel a bit. I sort of get it, but also you sort of think, well, he's not done a bad job. We're 7th in the league. We've been in the top 6. We're probably higher than we expected to be. And yeah, the next 8 games will naturally make or break our season in terms of whether it really was a success or not.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because football in 2025 is just absolutely dominated by the sideways, backwards passing that doesn't really go anywhere. Everybody plays the same football, and it's a challenge. It's a challenge from a product perspective. The Premier League, to me, is one of the most dullest leagues in the history of the world. I know a lot of the broadcasters are trying to still harp on that it's the most exciting league in the world. It isn't. It's largely dull. The same thing happens every single year. It's impossible to break into, and the football is just played exactly the same way. And when Pep Ball's now filtered its way down to League One and League Two, and everybody's trying to play the same, it's like, well, it's just not entertaining to watch. And it feels like there's a real run at the moment, Paul, of unpopular managers who are getting the job done. And I think Burnley, to an extent, are struggling with a similar version of that. Scott Parker most definitely wasn't a popular appointment after Vincent Kompany somehow managed to look box his way to that buying job. And
he's done all right, isn't he, to be fair?
Who has?
Vincent. He's done all right.
We don't speak about. We don't offer him any praise on this podcast, Paul. We're not friends.
Apologies.
Yes, no, it's okay. We don't give him anything other than our disdain. But as going back to our actual manager, from on the pitch, Burnley have really struggled with that this season. It's been a real challenge, but we really, really like our manager as a person. So it's just a really weird position to be in, and you'll probably have the same version of this as content creators. It's quite hard to pitch that in terms of and trying not to come across as being like the most ridiculous set of entitled fans you've ever come across. So talk me through, because that was going to be my next point that I came on to now. Talk me through and expand a little bit more on that comment about the manager. Like, what is it about him that's maybe not making him the most popular manager, and where exactly do your fans sit with him?
Yeah, I think there's an underlying feeling that because he came from Oxford in League One, that he's a League One manager. So whenever we lose, you see accusations of, he's a PE teacher, he's a Pep disciple, he doesn't have this, he doesn't have that. And you can sort of see that argument, but I think again when you look at results, where we were when we came in and where we are now, but it's just we're not dominating games. We're winning games 1-0, 2-1 if we win games. We're drawing too many. We're still losing the games at home we shouldn't lose. And home to Swansea is a great example this year. I think that's the only game we've lost this year, but they were in dreadful form and we couldn't break them down. And I think it's that feeling of when teams sit in, we can't break them down. But I also think that's a generic football thing. When teams sit in, we've seen it with England this week. It's really hard to break teams down when they sit 10 behind the ball. And
we've had that all season.
Fans expect some magic from somewhere and but it's not that easy to do. It's really not to do. And there's that. I think that is the underlying feeling. But I think at the end of the season, I made a point on our Space or podcast last week. If we finish 7th or 8th, which we may well do, there is absolutely no doubt in my mind that Leicester and Southampton and Ipswich will be looking at our manager and going, is he the guy to take us forward? Because he's taken us from table to 7th. He's a progressive manager who plays this passing football, who plays this style. And I think that they might not go for him, but they'll be looking at him. And I think that's the sort of position we're in where if we don't go up, we might risk losing our manager who's got us here.
He does talk a good game, I think. I do like the few things that I was looking at in preparation for this preview show and in readiness to speak to you. He does seem to be quite switched on. You can see why media like him and why he comes well to other fans.
Yeah, he's one of these guys. He was a
charismatic
footballer, but didn't quite make it. He's been coaching since he was 18, and he's learned a lot of that narrative, that talk about how you set teams up, how you do things, and he's an educator, I guess, in that sense.
Yeah. So I guess from our perspective, then, Paul, like, what does success look like to you this season?
So if you'd asked us at the start of the season, and we had finished 9th, I think most fans would have gone, "That's decent. That's okay."
Top half.
Now we are where we are. You naturally want playoffs.
Yeah, I get that.
Do. And if you don't finish in playoffs, you're going to think, "Oh, have we fallen away? Have we not quite made it?" You'll look back all those games where you've let goals in the 90th minute, or you've not quite put away teams at home that you've dominated. So a whole 3-4 weeks ago was a great example. We had a man sent off in the 15th minute. We absolutely dominated. We had something like 27 shots against their 3, and we drew 1-1. And you look at that sort of game and you go, we should have had 3 points there. So I think that's a challenge now. As soon as you get where you are, you sort of think we should get there. But we've got a tough run in. We've got 8 games left. 4 of those games are against the top 6. So we've got yourselves, Leeds, Sunderland and West Brom all still to play. So
if you could beat Leeds, that would be great. Thanks.
Yeah, we'll try our best. We're penultimate game, I think, so we might have already won the title by then. But it's going to be tough. We've been brilliant at home since Christmas. We've been really strong. And if we can beat... I think West Brom was the key game for us, obviously, but we've got to win the games around it as well.
Yeah, no, I get that. I mean, it's perfectly understandable, and I don't think it's a bad thing to suggest that if you don't make the playoffs this year, then that signals a disappointing end to the season. But it's still progress. But I think the point for you is a good one in that, does get into the playoffs and not securing promotion or just failing on the playoffs equal risk to losing your manager, and that would definitely be. I can see the concern with that. There you go, Dave. Some good things here. I think it seems to me that most people outside of the club didn't really tip Bristol City for being playoff contenders, but inside the club, the fans really did think that, and it seems like they're in a positive place there, which is nice to see. Why don't you fill us in then, Dave, with the no nay never memory match remembers malarkey that you're going to give us, please, that you mentioned earlier on. Why don't you kick us off with that, please?
Well, yes, I did mention that Burnley had put 4 goals past Bristol City at Turf Moor on 4 previous occasions. And although we managed a 4-0 win in December of 2015, helped by an Andre Gray hat-trick, we're going to go back a few more years to the last regular league match of the 2008-2009 season, another memorable campaign, with 12 defeats in the first 45 matches of that campaign, would you believe? Owen Cole's Claret still needed victory in this match to guarantee our place in the end-of-season playoffs. But it was in our hands. We did have control, but there were more than a few nerves from the 18,000 fans inside Turf Moor when it was still goalless as the clock ticked over the 40-minute mark. However, a couple of quick goals before the break. Firstly, there was a trademark penalty from who else? Graham Alexander, followed quickly by another goal from who else? Wade Elliott eased the pressure somewhat. With the pressure off a little, Graham Alexander made it 3 with his second penalty of the game, and then substitute Joey Johnson rounded off an emphatic victory to add another with 5 minutes remaining. That made the final score Burnley 4, Bristol City 0. That result set us up for a 2-legged playoff semi-final against Reading, and the rest, as they say, is history.
The rest, they say, is history. I do love the sign-offs that you have of your little stats. You always have like a little quip at the end of it that always makes me want to repeat it. I was looking back at some of our previous shows, and I always start my segment with a little like repetition of what you said at the back end of that. It's very odd. Okay, well, let's move into part 2 of our preview show, please. We're going to be hearing from our opposition fan again in a moment, where we're going to be concentrating very much on the game itself this weekend and how we think they're going to set up and what we think who we need to keep an eye out for, essentially. So before we head back to Paul from the Exiled Robin, Dave, do you have a couple more stats for us, please?
I do indeed, yes. So far this millennium, Burnley have only lost 1 of 8 home matches against Bristol City, following on from a narrow 1-0 win for the visitors at Turf Moor in December 2007. The Clarets have won 5 and drawn 2 of the 7 home games since then, including 4 successive victories in the last 4 home meetings between 2013 and 2022. We've already mentioned a memorable match in our No Nay Never Remembers feature, but as far as memorable goals go, you'd be hard-pushed to find one better than the goal scored by Belgian midfield maestro Steven Defour. That was in an FA Cup 4th round tie against Bristol City at Turf Moor in January 2017. After a surging run from his own half, Defour played the ball to Johan Berg Gudmundsson before receiving a return pass on the edge of the box. Rather than trying to advance or power a shot past City keeper Fabian Giefer, he instead elected to go for an audacious chip shot over the 6'5" German stopper, which he executed to perfection. And the goal, quite rightly, won the award for goal of the round. Burnley progressed to the 5th round thanks to a 2-0 win in this match.
Gosh, do you, when you're compiling these stats, how much of this stuff is already in your memory? So how much of that is like fresh, or how much of it do you need to go digging? You must have an incredible memory.
I don't remember it all, but I've got some sheets set up which kind of list matches, so I can kind of use those as pointers for picking out the relevant bits.
Oh, I love it. Okay, well, let's head back then to our, I nearly did it again. Listeners, a little bit of a side note here before we break away. In the lead up to this game this week, I have been consistently talking about the preview and preparation for the Brentford game. And I even said it tonight when I said to Dave, I will go and record with a Brentford fan and we'll record later on. To which he very obviously replied that we're going to, if I'm recording content with a Brentford fan, something's either gone very well for us or spectacularly wrong for Brentford, and we've got a whole host of trouble. So we're going to head back to our Bristol City fan, and he's going to give us his thoughts ahead of that game at the weekend. So back over to you, Paul. Okay, moving on to this weekend. First run of, like you said earlier on in the show, first run in that 8-game leading to the end of the season is Burnley at Turf Moor. From a reputational perspective, I imagine not one that you would like to face, not a defence that likes to concede goals. And we have most definitely, since January, started to find our scoring boots once more. Edwards has made a significant difference to our striking offering. How are you feeling about Saturday as a general?
Yeah, I think I don't think there's a lot of expectation. I don't mean that in a negative way, but obviously you're a strong team. Yeah, but the signing of Edwards is just symptomatic of that, isn't it?
I don't know how we got him.
Goal scorer. Yeah, it's just we know how many levels we are behind the top 3 or 4. Yeah, if you look at yourselves, Leeds, Sheffield United, that's where we are. But obviously, you're not the biggest goal scorers. We're going to go out there thinking if we can keep it tight, for an hour or so, we might nick a goal, and we can nick a goal. But if everyone's now doing this whole thing where you look at all your fixtures left and what points you're going to get from what game. if we're all honest, no one's got more than a point to get away at Burnley. Obviously, if you might get a point, you might get none. It's not going to be the end of the season if we don't get any. But I think we know we're a good team. We know we can get there. We can go there and we can get a result. And if we went to Sheffield United probably a couple of weeks ago now, midweek, and we absolutely outplayed them for 75 minutes.
I saw.
If we go and take that performance to Burnley, we can win. Of course we can. And yeah, we know we're good enough to do that. We just need to take the chance when they come, and that's really key for us. We aren't the best at maybe taking full advantage of possession we get, the territory we get when it really comes, and yeah, that's going to be critical for us.
You are aware that we've not lost at Turf Moor yet this season.
Yeah, well, we faced Southampton a similar time last year, and they were on a 22-match unbeaten run, and we beat them 3-1. So
you may be the ones. You may be the ones that do it.
We like breaking those runs.
Oh, excellent! It's right. We're usually very generous with things like that as well. We definitely like giving people. If any team comes to us and needs some kind of hoodoo breaking, we usually tend to be quite generous with that. Players who haven't scored for ages, there you go. Yeah. You know, teams that are going to like get an unwelcome record if they don't do a result against us. There you go, have it on a plate, mate. So you know, we definitely feel that. In terms of the setup, then, how do you think your team and your manager will approach the game? How do you think you'll play against us?
So we're a fairly set sort of 3-4-2-1. So we have 3 centre backs, 2 wing backs, and 2 sort of box to box midfielders. We have Scott Twine, who you know, obviously, in one of our.
He's definitely going to score. Of course, he's going to score. We should never have sold him, by the way. Never have sold him.
Scott Twine apparently has scored more free kicks than anyone else in global football in the last 4 years. So he's ahead of Messi. And he's ahead of Ward-Prowse and ahead of anyone else that's on record.
Wow. So to the extent that that's not already in our previous show, I'm going to, as soon as I come off this call with you and we head back to Statman Dave in the studio, I'm going to press him on that point.
Yeah, there you go. And we've got Naki Wells up front, who, again, you know. So
Naki Wells is still playing. Do you know what?
34.
Did he go to Huddersfield first before he went to you?
No, we signed him. We almost sort of swapped him for Brownhill, but we didn't. It wasn't officially part of the deal. But we signed him after you signed Josh Brownhill from us.
I was sure that he'd gone to.
He was at Huddersfield before, but
okay. Yeah.
We signed 2 strikers in the summer who were both expected to take almost all the minutes this season, and Naki Wells has played more minutes than any other striker, and is our second for us. He's a brilliant pro, absolutely brilliant person, and has been fantastic for us, to be honest. He's really strong, but he's not. Came to us for cover and never really made it. 25 goal striker. He's not that sort of person who's going to nab goals all over. So yeah, I think between Twine and Naki Wells and Mark Sykes has been in great form for us. So an Irish right winger. He's been in fantastic form the last month or so. He's got a lot of pace. He's got a lot of sort of power down the right hand side. Gets a beautiful cross in. So that's where I'd be looking if I were you. Okay, well that sounds right. I'm not loving the idea of 3 centre halves and then 2 full backs as well, because we do struggle to break down heavily. I don't mean like from a stick 11, part of the bus kind of defense. I didn't mean that, but I mean a strong, resilient defense like that is very well packed. We most definitely struggle to break that down. So, we had Luke Manali from the summer. Luke Manali. No, I liked. Yeah, he's great. Unfortunately, he's out probably for the season, but he's absolutely brilliant when he played for us for 5 months. So we're missing him at the moment. No, he's good as that one. He never really managed to break into our first team either, so it was quite nice to see him go and getting some football. Okay, you've talked through the players to watch on there, 2 of which that we know very well. We're going to, I guess, why don't you finish us off on a high and give us a score prediction? And it's quite fine to back your team. You're in friendly territory here. Quite fine, but given your record, given your defensive ability, I think if we got away with not got away. If we got a draw, 0-0, 1-1, we'd all be absolutely delighted with that. I think it sets us up nicely. So we go in to get home games against Sunderland and West Brom. They're the ones we're all looking at as really key for us, obviously. And a draw, a point at Burnley, like a point at Sheffield United a couple of weeks ago, would be a bonus, I think, to where we're expecting. So if we can finish with 4 wins, 2 draws, 2 losses, we're probably there. So we've got a little bit of scope to go to Burnley and go to Leeds and hopefully get away with a draw. That's fine. So what is your score? What prediction? Specifically, not just a draw. Well, given it's Burnley, I think I'm going to have to go 0-0.
Yeah, no, please don't subject us to it. I've seen so many nil-nils this season. I cannot bear it any longer. There you go. So that is a word from our opposition fan. 0-0. He's predicting for the Clarets. All Clarets fans are just praying that that is not the case. Paul, what an absolute pleasure to have you back on the None and Never podcast. Thank you so much for your time. Best of luck for the rest of the season. I would love to see you in those playoffs. Just make sure that the first of those 2 losses in the next 8 games comes at Turf Moor at the weekend, because we do need to get into those top 2, please. That would be great.
I think for all of us, we love Josh Brownhill. We'd love to see him back in the Premier League.
Oh, Josh is great. I love Josh Brownhill so much. I've got a lot of time for that boy. He's great. And safe journey to all travelling Bristol City fans who are on the way up this weekend. And we hope you have a fantastic day. We'll check in you again at some point. Thanks, Paul. Okay, couple of points then, please, Dave, to let us go. We want quick results overview, please, before we do anything else.
There have been 26 previous competitive meetings between the 2 teams at Turf Moor, with 19 of those being played in the 2nd tier, meaning that this is the 20th season we've spent together at this level. Burnley's past home record in this fixture currently stands at played 26. Burnley have won 10, drawn 9 and lost 7. And the goals tallies stand at 43 to Burnley and 28 to our opponents, Bristol City.
That's a good start. Well, listeners, those of you who do have a passion, or as much of a passion, which I probably isn't correct, but you do have a passion for all things Burnley. Dave does have a fantastic website set up, which has got all the stats and information and links that you need for Burnley's history, essentially, or matches, and it's set up in all sorts of different categories. So you can go and have a mooch around them and see what you want. Now, those of you who are watching this on our YouTube channel, you'll see an infographic on the screen, which will give you the details. For those of our listeners who are listening via the podcast, Dave, why don't you tell them how they access that, please?
The best way is to use the short link I've set up, which is bit.ly/Burnley Stats QL. So that's Burnley Stats QL in uppercase. That's a little short link, and that gives you the menu screen, and you can get everything from there. I'm adding to it all the time. There's obviously, as new matches come on there, put on there, but I'm going back through time. I'm getting information on opposition lineups. There's also
excellent stuff. Thank you, Dave. Well, finish us off, please, with this week's referee.
Returning for a 5th Burnley match of the season, Durham-based official Andrew Kitchen will be in the middle at Turf Moor on Saturday afternoon. We've managed just 1 win from the 4 previous occasions he's taken charge so far this season. That was the narrow 1-0 victory at Ewood Park at the start of the year. Earlier in the campaign, he refereed a 0-0 draw at home to QPR in October, and also the 1-1 draw against Middlesbrough at Turf Moor in December. More recently, he was also in charge for the goalless draw in the league match at Deepdale in mid-February. Setting aside for a moment any criticism we may have about other aspects of the officiating in his previous 4 games, the way that Andrew Kitchen handled the much publicised incident at Deepdale involving Hannibal and Preston North End's Milutin Osmaic can only be described as exemplary. Finally, in terms of discipline, there have been no red cards in any of his previous 4 games, and the yellow card count is evenly poised at 5 to Burnley players and 5 to our opponents.
Good stuff. He did do a good job of that one, actually. And obviously, it's interesting to see that there's now been an FA charge. It does obviously need to be proven, but he did handle that very, very well. Well, we heard from our Bristol City fan, Dave, as to a score prediction, who predicted yet another 0-0 draw. I think we've seen the back of those now. We seem to be finding our striking boots to Burnley. We've got some goals in us now. So I'm going to ask you to sign off, please, with your score prediction ahead of the game.
I think it's going to be a Burnley win. I'm going to go for 2-0 to Burnley.
I think that's an excellent summary. Hearing what Paul had to say about how Bristol like to play with 3 centre-halves and 2 full-backs at the same time, I don't think we'll find it as easy to score as we maybe have done in other games. And we do seem to be a little bit more scared at home sometimes. So I do also predict a Burnley win, but I think it's going to be 1-0. I think it's been much narrower. Listeners, you know the drill by now, please. We want to hear your score predictions. You can either drop us a comment in the comment section, those of you who are watching this through our YouTube channel. While you are there, do please hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. It really does help the channel to grow. And it means that you never miss an episode of your favourite podcast. And those of you listening on through our podcast channels, just drop us a line at any of the social media channels. Just look for the handle None and Ever and you will find us. My thanks as ever go to everybody who has contributed to making this episode this week. To my colleague Dave Roberts, the best view in football, for all of the hard work that he puts into the preview show. We are incredibly lucky to have him. So do please go and support his channel. And also I think Dave is making a claim at the moment for Blue Sky, Dave. I think we all need to go and follow you at Blue Sky. Is that true?
Yes, I'm more active on Blue Sky these days, yeah.
Yes, as we probably all should be, given what's going on across the world. So do go, and if you are on Blue Sky, go and give him a little follow because he's more active on there. And to the rest of my colleagues within the None and Ever team, we will be back next week with an analysis show, looking ahead to the next fixture and analysing what went on at Turf Moor this weekend. So do keep an eye on your notifications and find out when that episode will be. I've been Natalie Bromley. This has been the None and Ever podcast. Until next time.
The None and Ever podcast is brought to you in association with the talkSPORT Fan Network. Our host and editor is Natalie Bromley, and the show is produced by Matt Moss. Our resident statistician is Dave Roberts, and our FPL expert is Adam Dennett. The Analysis Show team is collectively Tom Whittaker, Rich Steele, George Poole, Charlotte Rigby, and Adam Dennett. Our music is provided by George Gaskell, and our newsletter team is headed up by Jamie Smith. If you don't already, you can subscribe to our newsletter by visiting nonenever.substack.com. Thanks as ever go to our partners talkSPORT. We are proud to be associated with the talkSPORT Fan Network.